In this video, you will examine how an organization designs solutions that align with security best practices and priorities. Let's start with an overview of the current environment of Contoso, which exemplifies the traditional on-premises architecture with file, messaging, and backup servers hosted within the customer's own data center. File servers store a variety of business data, including confidential customer records and contracts, frequently updated marketing information, and large amounts of historical content that must be retained for compliance purposes. Customer records and contracts are created by using Microsoft Office products. Marketing information is typically stored in the Adobe Acrobat format, and historical content is commonly compressed as zip-based archives. All data is hosted on file servers running Windows Server 2016, using both local and ISCSI attached devices. Storage devices are close to reaching their capacity. Backups are implemented by using several tape libraries, which are approaching their end of life. The operational team handling backups found them to be relatively unreliable due to frequently failing restores and data corruption issues. To remediate these issues, users commonly maintain multiple copies of the same data across different file servers. Unfortunately, this further exacerbates the storage capacity issues. Another challenge that negatively affects security of Contoso's digital assets is the use of personal devices for VPN connectivity to the main office by remote insurance sales staff. The lack of oversight of the remote devices has been assessed by the company's Information Security, or InfoSec team, as a significant vulnerability. This assessment was proven fully justified by a recent incident that involved a malware transmitted through the company's on-premises Microsoft Exchange email. The malware managed to compromise one of the privileged Active Directory domain services, or ADDS accounts, and attempted to encrypt data on one of the file servers. This attempt was detected and blocked by the Microsoft Defender antivirus running on all of the company-owned Windows computers, but prompted Contoso's CIO to start considering a cloud-based strategy for data storage and protection. Embracing the cloud-first approach is bound to significantly enhance the customer's security posture, providing a range of options that offer a variety of ransomware protection measures, including short and long-term data storage. It will also address the vulnerabilities associated with the use of unmanaged personal devices for remote access to on-premises file servers. Considering the significant presence of Microsoft technologies in the current environment, choosing Microsoft 365, Azure, and Azure AD as the foundation of the future architecture offers the optimal path for the planned transition. The first step in the Contoso transition to the cloud-first operational model is to provision an Azure AD tenant and integrate it with the on-premises Active Directory environment. Such integration is implemented by using Azure AD Connect, which is an application you install on a Windows server with direct connectivity to ADDS domain controllers and outbound access to Azure AD. When installing Azure AD Connect, Contoso enables hybrid Azure AD join, which will allow users residing in their corporate headquarters to seamlessly authenticate to Azure AD from their Active Directory joined computers. The technology team at Contoso must meet certain requirements in its design of the cloud-based solution for data backups and ransomware protection. A key requirement is to control access to the company's assets based on a wide range of conditions, including the state of users' devices as well as dynamically evaluated risk. With the newly provisioned Azure AD tenant in place, Contoso also implements a number of features that will enhance overall security and mitigate ransomware risks. This starts with configuring Azure AD Identity Protection, enabling multi-factor authentication for the set of privileged accounts used for tenant administration, and implementing Azure AD Conditional Access. Azure AD Multi-Factor and Passwordless Authentication including support for Azure AD Authenticator app, Windows Hello for Business, and FIDO 2.0 keys, help mitigate ransomware risks by protecting identities against commonly seen password attacks, which account for 99.9% of the attacks targeting Azure AD. Eliminating this attack vector dramatically lowers the ransomware attack risk to resources which rely on Azure AD for authentication and authorization. Azure AD conditional access policies can be applied to authenticating users and their devices. These policies could ensure that access is granted only from Azure AD joined and fully compliant devices. They could also dynamically detect a risk associated with an authentication attempt. That risk is evaluated in real time by Azure AD Identity Protection. By leveraging Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, Contoso will be able to implement Azure AD conditional access session policies that monitor in real time the flow of data between users and managed applications in order to thwart data exfiltration attempts. Azure AD Privileged Identity Management provides time-based and approval-based role activation to mitigate the risks of excessive, unnecessary, or misused permissions. This will allow Contoso to leverage such capabilities of privileged identity management as providing just-in-time privileged access to Azure AD and Azure resources, assigning time-bound access to resources, requiring an approval to activate privileged roles, enforcing multi-factor authentication to activate any role, including justifications as mandatory elements of an elevation request, generating notifications when privileged roles are activated, triggering access reviews to validate whether users still need the ability to use roles, and maintaining audit history for internal or external audit. With the newly provisioned and configured Azure AD tenant in place, in preparation for enrolling Windows devices of remote users into Microsoft Intune, and to ensure full visibility into and traceability of cyber attacks affecting on-premises and cloud assets, Contoso implements Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, and Microsoft Defender for Identity. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is an enterprise endpoint security platform designed to help enterprise networks prevent, detect, investigate, and respond to advanced threats. Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps provides control over data travel and sophisticated analytics to identify and combat cyber threats across Microsoft and third-party cloud services. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint integrates with Defender for Cloud Apps by collecting and forwarding all cloud app networking activities, delivering enhanced visibility into cloud app usage. Microsoft Intune integrates with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, using it as its mobile threat defense solution. Integrating Intune with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint will allow Contoso to take advantage of the threat and vulnerability management functionality of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint and use Intune to remediate detected vulnerabilities and threats, thus minimizing the possibility of a successful ransomware attack. Microsoft Defender for Identity is a cloud-based security solution included in the Microsoft 365 Defender product suite that leverages AD/DS signals to identify, detect, and investigate advanced threats, compromised identities, and malicious insider actions directed at your AD/DS domain environments. Defender for Identity will enable Contoso's SecOps team, which currently struggles with detecting advanced attacks in hybrid environments, to monitor user activities and analyze their behavior by leveraging cloud-based artificial intelligence and machine learning, enhance the protection of Active Directory identities and their credentials, simplify and accelerate identifying and investigating suspicious user activities and advanced attacks throughout the kill chain, and assist with the triage process by providing a full timeline of an incident with its associated alerts. The next requirement is to deliver continuous security protection and monitoring of remote devices. Device security is one of the essential components of an effective ransomware protection strategy. To maximize this security, Contoso remote users join their devices to Azure AD, enroll the devices into Microsoft Intune, and onboard them to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Once these steps are completed, Contoso administrators are able to control and secure Azure AD joined devices with the Mobile Device Management, or MDM, functionality of Microsoft Intune. The MDM functionality provides a means to enforce organization-defined device configurations, including disk encryption, software installations, and software updates. Intune includes support for a wide range of policies that help apply and evaluate device compliance. It also offers integration with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint as its mobile threat defense solution. At the same time, with their accounts synchronized between on-premises Active Directory and the Contoso Azure AD tenant, remote users can benefit from passwordless authentication with Azure AD Authenticator app, Windows Hello for Business, and FIDO 2.0 keys. This addresses the design requirement for continuous security protection and monitoring of remote devices. In preparation for enrolling its users into Microsoft 365, Contoso provisions Microsoft Defender for Office 365 and Microsoft Purview. Microsoft Purview data loss prevention, or DLP policies, can detect, warn, and block risky, inadvertent, or inappropriate sharing of data containing personally identifying information, or PII, and confidential organization information based on sensitivity labels, minimizing the risk of ransomware that involves data exfiltration. Microsoft Defender for Office 365 is an email filtering service that extends the capabilities of Exchange Online protection by providing a feature called Safe Attachments, which protects against unknown malware and viruses. This will allow Contoso to implement an enhanced zero-day protection which safeguards their messaging system. Now that Azure AD authentication and authorization workflows rely on passwordless sign-ins and are controlled by conditional access policies, Contoso remote users will benefit from the protection offered by Microsoft 365 Defender services and Microsoft Purview when using the latest versions of Office 365 products. These products include SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, and Exchange Online. The same applies to the users residing in the Contoso corporate headquarters who will benefit from the hybrid Azure AD join and seamless single sign-on to Azure AD. Contoso files in SharePoint and OneDrive for Business will be protected from attacks that delete files or email by using versioning, recycle bin, and files restore. With versioning, Microsoft 365 retains a minimum of 500 versions of a file by default. This number can be increased if needed. Recycle bin protects against ransomware that creates a new encrypted copy of the file and deletes the old file. Contoso users will have 93 days to restore deleted files. Even after 93 days, there is still a 14-day window during which Microsoft can recover the data. With Files Restore, Contoso will have a self-service recovery solution for SharePoint and OneDrive, allowing its administrators and end users to restore files from any point in time during the most recent 30 days. Files in SharePoint and OneDrive for Business are protected from malicious encryption in place by leveraging versioning, recycle bin, and preservation hold library. Exchange Online emails are protected by single item recovery, mailbox retention, and retention policies. Single item recovery and mailbox retention support recovering items in a mailbox. This will allow Contoso users to roll back mail messages deleted within 14 days by default. If needed, that period can be extended up to 30 days. Retention policies will allow Contoso to retain immutable copies of emails for a configurable retention period. To prevent a ransomware attacker from copying files outside of the Microsoft 365 tenant, Contoso could use Microsoft Purview DLP policies, which detect, warn, and block risky, inadvertent, or inappropriate sharing of data containing PII and confidential organization information based on sensitivity labels. Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, which blocks transfer of sensitive data. Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps supports session policies as part of Conditional Access App Control, which continuously monitors in real time the flow of data between users and managed applications. Since users have, at this point, access to cloud-based personal and shared data stores as well as cloud-based messaging, Contoso can migrate their on-premises Exchange environment along with some of the Windows Server-based file shares to Microsoft 365. Once migration is completed, the on-premises servers are decommissioned. To prepare for migration of the remaining on-premises file shares to the cloud, Contoso provisions security and data protection-focused Azure services, including Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Microsoft Sentinel, and Azure Backup. Microsoft Defender for Cloud provides tools to detect and block ransomware, advanced malware, and threats for workloads hosted in Azure, third-party clouds, and on-premises. Its threat protection includes Fusion Kill Chain Analysis, which automatically correlates alerts across all managed environments based on analyzing the cyber kill chain, including information about the origin and impact. Microsoft Sentinel is a managed cloud-native solution that provides security information and event management, or SIEM, and security orchestration, automation, and response, or SOAR, functionalities. Similar to Microsoft Defender for Cloud, it will help Contoso identify and track threats and exploits, including the ability to create a complete view of a kill chain. However, with Sentinel, Contoso will be able to extend the scope of its oversight by leveraging connectors to collect telemetry and logs from a wider range of security resources. Another requirement is to minimize the footprint of on-premises backup infrastructure. Azure Backup provides a simple, secure, and cost-effective solution to back up a variety of data sources. Azure Backup supports backups of Azure Files shares, which Contoso can use to host the marketing information. Retention periods depend on the total number of recovery points, but the maximum retention with yearly recovery points is 10 years. The same limit applies to on-demand backups. Backup data residing in Azure Recovery Services Vault and Azure Backup Vault is isolated. Applications and guests don't have direct access to backups, preventing malicious actors from performing destructive operations on the backup storage, such as deletions or tampering of backup data. The next requirement is to protect backups against accidental or malicious deletions. As part of implementing Azure Backup, Contoso should adhere to the following best practices that mitigate security and ransomware threats. Restrict access to backups by using Azure Role-Based Access Control, or Azure RBAC. Azure Backup supports segregation of duties, allowing Contoso to grant only the permissions necessary to perform role-specific tasks. Use Azure AD Privileged Identity Management to provide time-based and approval-based role assignments. Ensure that soft delete is enabled to protect backups from accidental or malicious deletions. This feature is enabled by default on all newly created recovery services and backup vaults. It retains backup items for 14 days following their deletion. Implement Multi-User Authorization, or MUA, for critical operations on recovery services and backup vaults. MUA for Azure Backup leverages the Resource Guard to ensure that critical operations, such as disabling soft delete, stopping and deleting backups, or reducing retention of backup policies, can be performed only when authorized by multiple users. Provide just-in-time access on Resource Guard by using Azure AD Privileged Identity Management. Set up alerts and notifications for critical backup operations. Azure Backup offers monitoring and notification capabilities for a wide range of scenarios. Ensure network connectivity between backup services and workloads is secure. For Azure VMs, data in transit remains transverses the protected Azure Backbone network by default. For Azure Storage, Contoso should leverage the Trusted Services list to allow access to individual storage accounts. For on-premises workloads that are protected by using Microsoft Azure Recovery Services or MARS agent or Microsoft Azure Backup Server or MABS, Contoso could implement Microsoft peering for ExpressRoute. Private peering or virtual private network can be used in combination with private endpoints for Azure Backup. Network traffic between peered virtual networks remains private. Regularly monitor backups. Contoso should use monitoring solutions, such as Backup Explorer, to identify systems in the organization that aren't protected by Azure Backup, as well as monitor backup items, backup jobs, and policies. The final set of requirements are to minimize the footprint of on-premises storage infrastructure and ensure the data protection solution addresses the need for short-term and long-term backups. The final stage of the migration involves provisioning of Azure storage. Azure Files will host frequently updated marketing information in the Adobe Acrobat format. Azure Files support snapshots and soft delete for file shares. Snapshots are read-only, point-in-time copies of Azure Files shares. Soft delete transitions deleted shares to a soft deleted state instead of removing them permanently. Contoso will have the option to configure the amount of time during which soft deleted data is recoverable before it's permanently deleted. Azure Blob Storage will be used for archiving large amounts of historical content in the zip-based format that must be retained for compliance purposes. Azure Blob Storage offers the ability to protect its content by using immutable storage. Immutable storage for Azure Blob Storage will allow Contoso to store its data, which is subject to compliance-related retention requirements, in the worm or write once, read many state. While in a worm state, data cannot be modified or deleted for a user-specified interval. By configuring immutability policies for blob data, Contoso will be able to protect it from overwrites and deletes. Immutable storage for Azure Blob Storage supports two types of immutability policies. Time-based retention policies retain data for a specified interval, during which objects can be created and read, but not modified or deleted. After the retention period has expired, objects can be deleted, but not overwritten. Legal hold policies retain immutable data until the legal hold is explicitly cleared. When a legal hold is set, objects can be created and read, but not modified or deleted. In addition, Azure Blob Storage offers the soft delete functionality. Blob Soft Delete protects an individual blob, snapshot, or version from deletions or changes by retaining the deleted or altered content for a specified period of time. During the retention period, Contoso will be able to restore a soft deleted object to its previous state. After the retention period has expired, the object will be permanently deleted. Blob Soft Delete is part of a comprehensive data protection strategy for blob data. For optimal protection of blob data, Contoso should enable all of the following data protection features. Container Soft Delete to restore a container that has been deleted. Blob versioning to automatically maintain previous versions of a blob. This will allow Contoso to restore an earlier version of a blob to recover its data following a modification or deletion. blob soft delete to restore a blob, snapshot, or version that has been deleted. At this point, Contoso can decommission the remaining on-premises file servers and the backup infrastructure, completing their transition to a cloud-based environment. The new environment represents a dramatic improvement in the security stance of Contoso, especially in the context of ransomware protection.